Hello, everyone. Here I am for the second time today. Putting the link in if anybody wants to talk. Talking is great. I also try to get through reading some of the chapters of this book. So maybe that's what I'll do. See if anybody wants to jump on. If you are watching on Jacob's stream, I prefer you watch it on my Sartori Studios YouTube channel. Because I need to get my numbers up so that I can become a professional grifter. And yeah, that's what I'm trying to do. That's my game. I'm trying to become a professional influencer so I don't have to work so hard in real life. It's not really true, but I'm trying to angle this into a better job or something. So this is the link to watch it on my channel if you would like. And I'm going to start reading. And then see what goes from there. Chapter 37, Practical Housing, Architecture, Part 3. The post-war environment allowed for unparalleled access to wealth as defined by traditional metrics, the ability to own productive property, get married, and raise children. Sadly, a confluence of cultural forces from the 1960s onward has curbed the expansion of the middle class, and our society has been on a trajectory of ever-widening divisions between the haves and have-nots ever since. Most people wouldn't hesitate to say who got the short end of the stick, but the evidence may surprise you. Malcolm and Simone Collins regularly cite research showing that the number one factor that causes fertility to drop below replacement levels is excess wealth. Globally, the number is shockingly low, around $5,000 annual income. The cultural milieu has led billions of people to trade the greatest gift imaginable for a mediocre life of ease and comfort. This decision is almost entirely unconscious. When asked, most people still desire to get married and have families. But the lifestyle choices of the cultural elites have added countless layers of complexity and difficulty in achieving this goal. Other chapters have addressed the other circumstances surrounding this issue, but the focus for this section is how we can go forward in regard to housing. The first step is reevaluating our allegiance to meeting cultural norms and expectations. My wife and I were not earning much money when our first child was born. We lived in a small apartment owned by the church we both worked for. Fortunately, this work environment was very pro-baby, and they were more than willing to help us meet any needs that arose, including finding us a bigger place to live when necessary. If we had waited until after we were able to afford a home, we may never have made it. A few ideas that fly in the face of conventional wisdom apply to this circumstance. First, commit to your highest goals before worrying about how you will get there. Get married first and then find a better job. Have a kid first, then find a permanent place to live. The motivation of actual need is far more powerful than the motivation of a dream, especially in a world so full of comforting distractions. While owning a single-family home is a fantastic ideal, it can easily become a stumbling block to the greater goal of having a family. If your parents are amenable, consider living with them to save money. If it helps you get married and have kids, it's worth it. After moving to Texas, we stayed with my parents, who were able to purchase a home while we looked for jobs and got settled. We paid a marginal amount of rent, most of which they gave back to us when we were able to find our own home. Our second child was born while we were living with my parents, and having their help was invaluable. That season allowed us to get our finances together to make a down payment on our own home, right before the COVID measures made life a lot more challenging. If we had insisted on renting our own place, we would likely still be renting to this day, and we might have felt more reluctant about having our third child, who is an incredible delight, or, footnote not in there, our fourth child, who is also quite delightful. It's unfathomable to imagine life without her, but it could easily have been the case if we didn't ignore the forces pressuring us into making sensible choices. On this note, perhaps the first straightforward architectural innovation could be made by our parents, the baby boomers and Gen Xers. If you have equity in your home, consider rearranging your own living situation to make it easier for your own children to get married and have kids. It might necessitate moving to a different location, but it's also possible to modify or build onto an existing home. In the same way many previous generations have added in-law suites to accommodate aging parents, the distribution of generational wealth might make the opposite a very helpful solution. If not for your own children, those who own large homes could also consider adapting them to support multifamily living situations. Privacy is necessary, but to what degree depends on the nature of the relationship. In the home my parents bought, hanging a single door gave us 2 bedrooms and a bathroom to ourselves. A window-mounted air conditioner was added to the 3 seasons room to give us a separate living room for my parents, protecting us from the extreme volume at which my dad watched Oak Island, while giving them respite from the tedious repetition of Daniel Tiger. We all ate dinner together, and it was a really great time. The available space was used again by my sister and her husband when they made a similar move out of a financially untenable living arrangement in California. Special arrangements like this could be extremely beneficial for stabilizing society and the economy as the baby boomer population continues to age. The Collins released an excellent video showing the rapid deterioration of homes and larger buildings after the collapse of the auto industry in Detroit. Footnote, link below. The wilderness does not sleep on opportunities. In times such as these, institutions are the first to collapse. What this means is that the people who do the service and maintenance at the 55-plus retirement communities are going to stop coming to work long before the buildings begin to physically deteriorate. Placing your long-term care in a profit-based private institution might not be the best plan in an uncertain future. Consider instead if older retirees could invite young families into their large and empty homes, providing housing in exchange for maintenance and long-term care, a sort of grandparent adoption. While it would be difficult to vet matches through typical sorts of agencies, high trust relationships can be developed more easily and organically through local churches, a good incentive for both older and younger generations to attend. Some of these ideas may sound similar to movements like YIMBY, Yes in My Backyard, but there is a difference. The core ideas of YIMBY seem to point towards increased urbanization and population density. In keeping with the telos behind Christopher Alexander's work, it does not seem that the core ideas of YIMBY would alleviate many of the underlying problems our society is facing as a whole. It would simply allow more people to chase the centralized job markets in dense urban environments. A far better result would likely come from companies moving out of urban meccas and into areas of less population density. This pattern is what originally created much of the infrastructure in the 19th and 20th century, when industrialists would buy mills and factories that included towns, would build mills and factories that included towns for the workers, though more will be said about that idea later. There is, however, great merit in the literal statement, yes in my backyard. Much like the idea of remodeling or adding onto a home to accommodate children moving in, those with slightly more land should consider arrangements that allow people to construct tiny homes, barn dominiums, mobile homes, or RVs if permissible. Those who are looking to establish themselves and start families should embrace these lower starting cost opportunities if they can find similarly supportive people who are willing to help out. The tragedy of the real estate cycle. Beyond these simple arrangements, there are many ways that architecture could be implemented by people who are seriously interested in returning marriage and family to the highest values of society. It would require a decision to build homes towards the telos of encouraging families over the maximization of profits, but to do so requires breaking free from the real estate cycle. The typical cycle of ownership is based on ever increasing inflation. Bob and Donna, a young couple just out of college in 1980, scrimped and saved to put a down payment on any house they can afford, a small two-bedroom home on an eighth of an acre on the outskirts of a city, just on the edge of suburbia. After living there for a few years, they sold the home for an increased price. Though they had hardly made a dent in the principal of their mortgage, the consistent rise in home prices meant that every few years they could sell one home and walk away with a substantial amount of cash, the difference between what they paid and what they sold the house for. The sum varied as the markets fluctuated, but they always came out on top, to the tune of maybe $50,000 or $100,000. In contrast to buying their first home, which required all their savings to make a down payment, Bob and Donna now had a substantial amount of cash on hand, and they had options to weigh. If they were to buy a house at the same price as the one they sold, they could get an extremely favorable loan with a low interest rate. By putting down 30 or 40% of the cost in cash, they would save a considerable amount over the life of the loan and own their house outright within a decade. Or they could buy a slightly bigger house, investing all their cash, and keep the same mortgage payment they had grown accustomed to paying each month. However, like most typical families, Bob and Donna usually took the sum earned off the sale of their previous home and found one bigger, nicer, and in a better neighborhood, putting down 20% on a more expensive home. If their careers were going well, as Bob's usually was, they felt comfortable taking on a higher mortgage payment, which meant their next house would be a major upgrade. This cycle continued for some time, with the occasional refinance when interest rates dropped, and some of the cash was used towards cars, vacations, and having a bit of fun. Everyone did the same thing, until all of Bob and Donna's friends were living in homes bigger than they needed. As Bob found himself in a position of seniority at work, he was able to give Donna the house they had always wanted: 6 beds, 5 baths, a little over an acre of land out on the edge of the country. It's a bit of a longer drive to the office, but thanks to remote work, he only has to go in a couple days a week. There's plenty of room for all 3 of their kids' cars in the U-shaped driveway, while Donna's massive SUV, his luxury sedan, and the Corvette he drives to the golf course on weekends fit comfortably in the 3-car garage. When the kids had all left the nest, the couple decided to look into downsizing. They'd had 5 great years in their dream home, but Donna's kitchen was too big for cooking meals for just the 2 of them, and most nights she just brought home takeout after work. They never used the theater room on the 2nd floor since the kids moved out. Bob watches basketball on the TV in his man cave, while Donna watches Real Housewives laying on their bed. Bob decided he doesn't want to mow such a big lawn anymore. He never minded the size when he'd been golfing regularly, but since his knee surgery, he had gotten out of the habit of exercising and spending so much time in the sun. He looked into having landscapers come out, but their prices were exorbitant. Even their neighbor's kid wanted to charge $15 an hour. $15 an hour to use Bob's brand new John Deere ride-on. Bob thought the kid should have been paying him. And while his salary easily covered their mortgage payment, his financial planner told him it might be wise to reduce their monthly bills ahead of retirement to make getting used to living on a fixed income easier. The charm of country life had worn off the couple, and they decided to look for a place a bit closer to civilization. On a nostalgic drive through the city, the couple noticed a for sale sign planted in the yard of their very first home. It was priced significantly higher than when they had sold it years ago, but the value was less than half of their current home. They downloaded an app to access the automated lockbox and take a walk through their old house. Many changes have been made in the decades since. The cabinets and floors had been brought up to date. The walls were painted neutral gray. The popcorn ceilings had been scraped clean, and the old brass light fixtures had been replaced with recessed cans. They talked about how fun it would be to live in their old house again. But there are some serious drawbacks to the layout, and the closets were tiny. It didn't even have a separate suite for the master bed and bath. They couldn't give up their current lifestyle to go back to such an outdated home. After looking around the rest of the neighborhood and seeing all the changes, they came up with an idea. Their realtor told them there was significant interest and encouraged them to move fast. They make a cash offer over the asking price, which is quickly accepted. After closing on the house, they had their general contractor out the next day. Within the week, he began demolishing the old home. Construction took just over 6 months, but they spared no expense. The new house was smaller than their home in the country, but much bigger and better than the original house. They had reduced the size of the backyard by 90%, half of it used to expand the footprint of the house, while the rest was turned into a patio and swimming pool. Even at $20 an hour, the landscapers couldn't gouge Bob too badly for the few shrubs that remained. No expenses spared in the quality of the materials and the layout. 6 months later, they sold their old home and moved into their brand new home with an old address. The new house fits in nicely with the other homes that have been upgraded or rebuilt. Their neighborhood is filled with other retirees, wealthy young professionals, and dinks. To celebrate their new home, the couple cranks up the Jimmy Buffett and heads out to the pool with an enormous pitcher of high-octane margaritas. After a few hours of dancing and feeling the vibes, Bob grasps his chest in pain. He drops his margarita and clutches onto Donna's frilly swimsuit for stability. The hefty retirees both lose their balance and tumble into the pool. Donna is unable to disentangle herself from Bob's grasp. She shouts for help, but none of her neighbors can hear her cries over the shows they are binging on Netflix. The couple continues to panic and splash, but soon both slip beneath the surface. A few months later, a lawyer enters the office of an administrator at the local animal rescue to inform them that they have become the owners of a beautiful new home in a gentrified urban neighborhood. The administrator is baffled, as she had never met these benevolent strangers. After searching her records, she discovered that they had been donating a generous but not exorbitant annual gift after attending a black tie fundraiser a few years before, the kind of giving that can be beneficial as a tax write-off. The lawyer then related an anecdote about how furious the couple's 3 adult children were when they found out their parents left them nothing but a few personal mementos. Bob had explained on the video that it was for your own good to give you the same opportunities your mother and I had. We have spoiled you, and this will help you mature. The two have a good laugh at the absurdity of the older generation, relating similar things their own parents had said to them. The administrator is frustrated to have inherited a project instead of a useful donation, but she contacts a realtor and they check out the house. She's tempted to just move in herself, but then decides that dealing with the hassle of the paperwork and utilities would make it more work than it's worth, and she would be the one to deal with it. Although it takes a while to get rid of the stains and smells lingering in the swimming pool, the house is quickly sold to a 4-person polycule for a tidy sum of money after they all fell in love with the massive walk-in shower in the master suite. Although this account is fictional, it demonstrates several of the problems with our current real estate system. One is that homes are seen by most institutions and individuals primarily as investments and secondarily as a means of fulfilling the basic need for housing and shelter. Because rental units are seen as the answer to this basic need, access to simple single-family homes becomes a luxury. Due to a mixture of reasons, some cultural and others based on real psychological phenomena, people are much more likely to start families when they can access the minimum amounts of privacy, space, and stability provided by a small house and a little patch of grass. However, as the story illustrates, These once affordable houses are more and more likely to experience massive price increases due to gentrification of neighborhoods and the ever widening urban sprawl, which makes neighborhoods formerly on the outskirts of cities more and more valuable to commuters. As real estate prices rise, the aesthetic value of homes on small lots needs to reflect increasing price per square foot. This means the footprint of the houses increase to take up a greater percentage of the lot size, and the surfaces are upgraded to reflect the high costs of the area. The larger plots of land that would be ideal for creative housing solutions are almost always occupied by the type of massive home that Bob and Donna sold in the country. The market for building small starter homes are limited to one kind of developer, ones that make their money off of financing. Small homes are available in some places with predatory, high interest, 0% down loans. Because the builder really makes their money off the financing and not the product, they are incentivized to cut as many corners as possible. There's also a tendency to build these homes in neighborhoods so far off the beaten path that they never significantly increase in value, at least not at a rate that surpasses their deterioration. The overall telos of our current home building system is captured in Jesus' parable of the rich fool. And he told them a parable, saying, "The land of a rich man produced plentifully, and he thought to himself, 'What shall I do? For I have nowhere to store my crops.' And he said, 'I will do this. I will tear down my barns and build larger ones, and there I will store all my grain and my goods. And I will say to my soul, Soul, you have ample goods laid up for you for many years. Relax, eat, drink, be merry.' But God said to him, 'Fool, this night your soul is required of you, and the things you have prepared, whose will they be? So is the one who lays up treasure for himself and is not rich towards God.'" Luke 12:16-21. Many people have successfully skirted the fate of Bob and Donna and the barn building fool. But on the whole, our culture, our economy, and all it entails are marching in the same direction. So many of our financial systems are based on the projection of ever bigger yields and ever bigger barns to hold them. The fallout of their greed will rest on the last person to sign the dotted line. At some point, it's inevitable that a significant percentage of people will find themselves underwater on home loans. The solution is not some communistic redistribution of wealth. In the verse that precedes the parable, Jesus calls out a man who is caught up on what he perceives to be an unfair distribution of wealth. Someone in the crowd said to him, "Teacher, tell my brother to divide the inheritance with me." But he said to him, "Man, who made me a judge or arbitrator over you?" And he said to them, "Take care and be on your guard against all covetousness, for one's life does not consist in the abundance of his possessions." From Luke 12:13-15. This warning is very prescient for the generations who are now coming into adulthood and trying to establish their life. Real estate markets and available housing are what they are, and we all have to weigh the risks of our investment. There's no guarantee you won't be left holding the bag. All right, just grab the water. I will show, so there was one little thing I had been working on. I'm making those notebook LM videos, and I didn't like how fake, they're really fake. And I don't know how you get people to watch something that's fake. So I wanted to make it a little better, but I didn't want to be dishonest. Like you could, and so you could make an AI video that has real people speaking, so it looks like it's a real podcast, but they're robots. So I had the idea to make robot podcast hosts. So this is only a minute long, but I'll play it.
So what if I told you that the invisible forces shaping what you want, who you admire, and even how you think are all part of an ancient religious system that's just hiding in plain sight? In this explainer, we're diving into a section from Michael Sartori's Tents Before Temples, a book that honestly decodes the hidden economics of our modern culture. And it argues that to really understand our world, we first have to understand our desires.
I mean, just think about it for a second. We scroll through feeds like they're sacred.
So, obviously, a little choppy there. Didn't quite line up, but I don't know. I thought it was kind of a fun thing to do. See if anybody else thinks of it. Yeah, so if you're watching, jump on. I'm going to keep reading a little bit, but I'm more than happy to stop and talk if anybody wants to come in here. Let's see. Links in there in the comments. Okay. Let's keep going. Creative tweaks on old designs. If interested parties can find their way past the inflationary real estate cycles, there are many possible solutions worth exploring. One example would be designing communities with larger plots of land but smaller houses, a combination that is typically difficult to find. This would allow families to expand over time organically, rather than forcing people to move whenever they are considering having more children. There are many places where land is affordable enough to build on larger plots, sufficiently distanced from major cities. Building communities specifically geared towards those who want to prioritize family could work well to attract people who are able to work remotely. Rather than choosing areas of complete isolation, smaller neighborhoods could be built near existing towns and smaller cities that may be in need of revitalization. As many communities built around traditional industries like manufacturing continue to thin out due to economic changes, an area of new construction could also attract people who are interested in rehabbing existing homes in the area. A construction business could be structured to provide housing at cost for the employees or contractors, reducing the margins. Requiring some level of participation in the construction of homes from the buyers could also help keep market forces from artificially inflating the price of these houses, while eliminating the number of separate tradesmen needed. Many DIY enthusiasts would be happy to buy homes at or before the drywall stage, especially at a reduced price. Foundations and mechanical stems could also be built with future expansions in mind, allowing a family to set the pace of their home expansion plans according to their needs and finances. Creative designs could also be implemented, such as those based on the pattern House for a Small Family from Alexander's A Pattern Language. Many small households, not large enough to have a full-fledged nursery, not rich enough to have a nanny, find themselves swamped by the children. The children naturally want to be where the adults are. Their parents don't have the heart or the energy to keep them out of special areas. So finally, the whole house has the character of a children's room. Children's clothes, drawings, boots and shoes, tricycles, toy trucks, and disarray. Yet, obviously, few parents feel happy to give up the calm and cleanliness and quiet of the adult world in every square inch of their homes. To help achieve a balance, a house for a small family needs 3 distinct areas: a couple's realm reserved for the adults, a children's realm where children's needs hold sway, and a common area between the two connected to them both. That is from the Pattern Language. Footnote: this is one of a few patterns available as a sample online at patternlanguage.com. The whole book can be accessed as a hyperlinked text to explore for $5 a month, a small fee if you can extract the necessary data in that time frame. End footnote. The full features of this pattern and the associated designs are aimed at capturing the most life-giving aspects of a well-designed home from the least amount of resources. Another creative solution may be to design self-communal living spaces for families who are amenable to the concept. In trying to emulate the concept of tents over temples, why not use real tents? I'll skip it. Yoav, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Did you see the robot hosts?
Yeah, I like robots.
Yeah.
I mean, it is a bit cringeworthy, but it's just the beginning.
Yeah.
It's a form of art that we're just starting to master, and I think it's that the job, because I think at the end of the road, more people will watch these silly movies than they will read your book.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So yeah,
The
okay.
book's
So
just
the
the book's just for the people that want who question if there's anything behind the silly movies. If you can get the silly movies right away, then you don't need to read the book, I guess. But
yeah, I like the silly movies. Um, about the subject today, uh, what I can contribute, I can tell you about the apartment I grew up in, because I think it's a success story.
Okay.
It's actually the apartment I'm living in at the moment. So it's the neighborhood I grew up in, and I still live in the same neighborhood. It just proves to you how much of it is a success.
Mm-hmm.
There was never was real need to move anywhere else, except when I was just going out of the parents' home and I need to be independent, and I had to rent out with my girlfriends, and just for the sake of doing
so
something else.
Yeah.
It's like those fish coming back to the river when they hatched. So it was the 50s, and the economic situation was tough. So it is with some correlation to the situation that people will find themselves today.
Mm-hmm.
You want a nice house in a nice neighborhood. You want a place to raise your kids, but you cannot quite afford it. So to save money, you don't live in private houses. You live in apartments, and don't make the apartment building too tall. 4 stories maximum.
Mm-hmm.
So you have a bit of saving on the land, but it's not overcrowded. And you make everything for prefabricated. The cheapest deal you can make, because you want the young families to afford it.
Yep.
But then, in advance, you form the community. There has to be some people with some kind of common background.
Yep.
Maybe they belong to the same church, or if they work in the same factory, or things like that. And they form a body, actually a legal body, let's say a non-for-profit company that is in charge of finding the land and inspecting the building. So while the contractors are building the neighborhood, you have a representative of the future tenants overlooking the work.
Mm-hmm.
So while you're saving materials as much as possible, you make sure that the buildings are made to last.
Yep.
And they will actually be livable once you're moved in. And you save in space wherever you can. So the flats are actually tiny, but then because you built 4 stories high and the flats are not big, then you have large plots of land between the buildings.
Mm.
And those plots of land are not private. They belong to the founding company who acquired the land to begin with.
Yep.
So when you're going out for a barbecue or just to play with your kids, you're not in your private garden. You're already in the communal playground.
Mm-hmm.
So then in the 50s, the thought that the food was actually scarce in Israel, and the thought was to plant fruit trees and to do some kind of agriculture with a fairly large plot of land between their houses, and to sell the products to the local supermarket. But then in the 60s, people have got richer and they found good jobs. Nobody wanted to tend to the fruit trees, and anyway, they cause a lot of mess because all the fruits falling down
Yep.
make quite a mess. So those was replaced with trees for shade and for beauty, not for fruits.
Mm-hmm.
And since they were planted in the early 60s, by now they are quite big trees.
Yep.
So by now, between the houses, you have quite a well-developed forest. And of course, the communal company is taking care of the gardening and of the maintenance of the buildings. And since it's a legal establishment, you have election for a steering committee to run the place, volunteers from the community to run the place.
Mm.
And you have votes on important issues concerning the... Now, for the plan of the house, it is divided into 4 equal parts. 1/4 is the common living room, when later the television will sit. 1/4 is the parents' room, which is quite large bedroom, but it doesn't have its walking shower, and it doesn't have its walking cupboard, because you are trying to save as much space as possible.
Yeah.
And 1/4 is for the kids, which is easier when the kids are small and you can put 3 kids in one room. Then it's a bit problematic.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, Shalom Chezi. And the other 1/4 is for kitchen, bathroom, toilets, which is tiny. It was okay in the early 60s when washing machines were small and ovens were small, small if existent, and you can always dine in the living room, not in the kitchen, because there's not enough space there. By the 70s, it's get a bit tight. You need to expand. Kids are getting older, kitchens are getting full of white goods, fridges are getting bigger. A lot of the top of the social ladder are moving away to better places. But still, the population that stays, it's still a bit of a socialist community, because everybody has an apartment of the same size.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody living in the same salary or similar salaries. And everybody's kids are growing up together in the common park between the houses. And it also helped that you had a genius architect to design the neighborhood. So it is designed as a kind of a circle with the school in the middle. So everybody is going to the same school and you don't need to cross any roads to go to the school. So you just send the kids from your apartment to school. You don't even have to walk them to school. Okay, what you do when you get richer? Then you start to design an expansion. And you need to keep it uniform, so everybody will have the same expansion. So you vote on a master plan, and everybody has the option to expand the flat. Because it's a 4 stories high, the 4 neighbors will have to do it together. But having 4 families decide on an expansion when it's so profitable is not very difficult. So you have the common plans, and once a group of 4 families agrees on an expansion, then they execute the expansion. And you have a first plan that expand to one direction, and then you have a second plan expanding to the other direction.
So is it one family on each floor? Is that how they are, or the whole floor? Or
it's actually 2 families per floor because it's
Okay.
a common stairway, so it's 8 families.
Okay.
In each floor, 1 to the left, 1 to the right.
Okay.
But if you want to expand, only 4 are required. So by now, I'm sitting in quite an expanded, quite cozy flat with enough rooms for enough kids and a big kitchen and whatever I need, in a neighborhood that is green, that is actually buildings planted within a park with mature trees. And this is now in the middle of Tel Aviv, Israel's most expensive city, because in the 50s, when this was built, it was far, far away, beyond the river, actually. And you really had the trouble getting there, finding a bridge to get there. But now the city has grown, and it's in the middle of the city. So you're living in a large flat in the middle of the city, inside a park, and it's still the best place to raise kids because you still have the school in the middle of the neighborhood.
Yep.
So, as I have never heard of any better arrangement. So I'm quite boastful of that.
Oh, yeah, that's good. So, I mean, but it's interesting because I think basically since the country was founded, Israel's really been a very pro-family, like seeing that as the kind of more as the basic unit, I guess, right? I mean, I don't know, maybe if it's more individualistic now, but that was, I think, kind of the direction, right?
Yeah, Israel is pro-children. Doesn't matter where you live.
Mm-hmm.
If you go within a walking distance from my neighborhood, you find the city of Bnei Brak, which is populated by the ultra-Orthodox. And it's very crowded and hardly a train sight. I mean, it's just a jumble of concrete.
Mm.
But they have more kids than I have.
Yeah.
I mean, when you want to have kids, you have kids. You disregard the conditions. Having kids is above everything else.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think in America, a lot of people have made a trade off where they haven't said that kids are a luxury. I mean, just in the common thought by a lot of people, marriage is a luxury, or it's a hard now. It's just a hard thing because you have to get two selfish people that want to enter into a thing that's not that requires sacrifice. So or you have to be wealthy enough that you don't have to make any sacrifices, and so it becomes a luxury thing, and then kids kind of the same way. I don't really think that's true overall. Well, actually, so there was somebody put on an article recently talking about 10% of the population in America has 50% of the wealth and holdings. And basically, most of the companies have just decided we're only going to market to that 10%. We're not going to worry about doing anything for the 90% of people that are below that high earning threshold. So it's stuff like like Disneyland was originally supposed to be like an affordable thing, and every family could plan to go there at some point, maybe once or whatever. But now it's like thousands and thousands of dollars to go for a week or even a few days. So it's and so so there's problems on the big, like the market does whatever it wants to do. Well, it does whatever it wants to do, but it's aimed at money more than things like people and families. So yeah. Well, you mean the thing you're describing is good. I mean, I think that's probably possible for people here, but you have to go find some little town that's dead or dying or uninhabited, and then you can start from scratch building units like that. Hezzy, if you're around, you can come tell us about the architecture that promotes a good family life.
Hezzy just moved into a new house. I'm sure he can teach us a lot, but
yeah,
he might be busy.
Well, I can keep reading. This is my next crazy. You can hear this part and see how crazy you think this idea is. Many campgrounds now offer semi-permanent tent structures such as yurts and teepees, which can be sturdy and long-lasting and can even be appointed quite luxuriously. This type of glamping is barely a departure from the modern urban lifestyle. But why not camp permanently, or at least short-term? A campsite-style arrangement centralizes the most expensive parts of constructing modern buildings while leaving the lower-cost portions of a household to be constructed cheaply and efficiently. It would only take some small adaptations to make the communal aspects of a traditional campsite a bit more private to suit individuals and families for long-term residence. As an example, the typical summer camps for youths are divided by sex, while all the boys and all the girls share semi-communal toilets and shower spaces. So there's your traditional gendered summer camp layout. However, the same infrastructure could easily be modified to house the same number of toilets, showers, and even bathtubs, a useful amenity for small children, into private units that could be maintained by their individual owners/renters. It's not hard for the people in such an arrangement to figure out solutions to the details. Each family could be in charge of maintaining their own facilities. They could choose to clean and fix anything themselves, pay someone else to do it, or never bother, though that would likely require paying for a major overhaul when someone wants to move out. So, privatized campsites for families and individuals. So you have your cabins, little cabins, your yurts, Each one's got access to a little private facilities in the same kind of footprint, all the plumbing and whatnot taken care of there. This is essentially permanent camping. But just consider how useful such a situation could be for many different people. Individuals and young couples saddled with exorbitant student loans can't afford to make big life changes. They are forced into seeking higher paying jobs, which means moving to big cities with higher living expenses. At the end of the day, it still takes years to pay off the loans because there's not enough left over to pay the minimums or to pay beyond the minimums. Drastically reducing the cost of living gives them the freedom to pursue other avenues of interest. It could also be beneficial for young people entering the trades or other careers, or those who have fallen on hard times for a variety of reasons. When the useful aspects of a traditional agrarian lifestyle are separated from the pursuit of a particular movement or a spiritual or aesthetic ideal, they can be implemented creatively to good effect. It doesn't cost too much to heat or air condition a 12-foot or 16-foot yurt. Purposefully choosing to live in a setting like this makes it easier to engage in healthy interpersonal relationships than the kind of Netflix boxes cities provide for individuals. You could still choose to sit in your tent or cabin streaming shows by yourself all day, but if there is easy access to making and eating food in groups, gardening together, helping fix leaking roofs or broken toilets, it's much easier to avoid harmful isolation. The aspect of this concept most in line with the YIMBY movement is the proximity to a real town. You could still drive a car to work, get fast food when you want it, and have decent cell phone and internet access, but you might find yourself spending more time reading books and playing music. A solution like this helps to fit a microcosm of what Alexander calls a housing cluster. Though having the bathrooms at the back means the more important communal space would be centered at the front, perhaps forming clusters with more traditional single-family homes. People will not feel comfortable in their houses unless a group of houses form a cluster, with the public land between them jointly owned by all the householders. Therefore, arrange houses to form very rough but identifiable clusters of 8 to 12 households around some common land and paths. Arrange the clusters so that anyone can walk through them without feeling like a trespasser. From the patternlanguage.com. So that's kind of the same thing you got there, right? Yeah. Clusters of buildings with the common land between them. It's not a radical concept, but it makes a lot of sense. It reflects the way towns and villages came about organically. But how would such a space come to be? It could be done with a few mutually interested parties. One helpful element might be the owners of an internet-based company of some sort. My ignorance of such specifics is revealed here. Something that doesn't require much more than an office building and decent internet access, but run by people who want to live in a family-oriented community. This creates both an immediate and a perpetual need for housing, which makes it an ideal place for someone interested in starting a construction business. They can create a camp-type community quickly to house the people interested in moving there and allow people to expand off their tents and cabins as they wish. As the influx of people revives and expands the local culture of the town, the need for such temporary living arrangements will eventually wane. At that point, it can be repurposed as a traditional vacation site and a testament to the history of a community. The how-to, once pioneered by the first generation of people willing to move, will become a valuable commodity in itself. This can lead to the creation of meaningful apprenticeships for others who wish to do likewise, and those who wish to try similar but different endeavors in other parts of the country or the world. One very important reason for trying an experiment like this is the perpetual fear of society collapse. Many people are afraid for various reasons that the Western world is headed for another dark age. In reality, many small and medium towns are already on various stages towards that destination. Averting disaster at the national or global scale is not really something within our power. But what if a small group of families and individuals with a goal and purpose can avert disaster on a smaller scale? Such an example could provide massive hope amidst the chaos of our time. While the globalization project seems doomed, the fruits that it has produced in the last few decades are invaluable. There has never been more potential for local industry. With the advancements in computerized manufacturing, any small town can host a workshop capable of producing the parts needed to fix or rebuild almost anything that has been made up to this point, though not as quickly as major manufacturers. CNC mills, lathes and routers, plasma cutters, laser cutters, water jets, and 3D printers require tiny footprints compared to what they can produce. When packed wisely with the proper tools and knowledge, a bug-out bag can eventually rebuild the whole Earth. Oh, you're muted.
What I want to say will sound very strange to modern day American, but if you can reach back to 100 years ago, you find people living in neighborhoods when everybody's kids were everybody's kids. It's not only that you tended to your kids, to their behavior. You felt responsible for everybody's kids in the block. And this enables the breadwinner to walk quite far away with having strange hours. So this is what I experienced in my neighborhood back 100 years ago. 100 years ago. The breadwinner doesn't need to work in the community or nearby. Some days he can be out there being a truck driver, or serving in the army, or staying in the office overnight, because his wife is not burdened with the kids all by herself.
Yeah.
They will be well taken care of in school, which is a walking distance away, and they will playing with the other kids in the park where there are no roads and strangers do not usually come. And everybody in the neighborhood is taking care of all the kids playing as a community. It did happen in the past quite a lot, and there's no reason why it shouldn't work in the future. So nice if you can find a way of working from home or working nearby. Not absolutely necessary if the community is built well enough.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the only thing is that, I mean, this is kind of like an industrial revolution innovation, I guess, was that when you have that distant work thing, it's usually, you're building cities or something like this. And then it's like, well, then somebody's going to be living in that place or whatever. So you have like two different lifestyles. I don't know, I guess in like a parasitic or maybe a symbiotic relationship, but however it goes. Yeah. I mean, it's not the end of the world, but I think there is. I mean, I think that's maybe just the thing that is the next thing that would be worth pursuing, is that you can have more decentralized things. So it doesn't have to be as far of a distance of like where the jobs are versus where the communities and the houses are. So, but I mean, you know, it's a you know, it's a trade-off. What's the On God saying? Estimates suggest that around 40 to 50% of all known animal species are parasites, with some scientists arguing the true number could be even higher, potentially making parasites.
Well, depends how you define the parasite.
The dominant lifestyle on Earth. Fun.
How do you call a lion who steals the hunt of the jackals? Is it not parasiting on the jackals? Yes, but anyway, it's the relationship between the parasites and the host that the parasites are small and numerous, and the host is one and big, of course. And this is teaches us what?
Well, I mean, I think we're all dependent on God. So if you want to call us parasites, that's our host. But, well, let's see. I don't remember all what else I said in here. I'm going to try to finish it up because my wife's going to go get the girls from school. So got a few minutes here. All right. The architecture of the family. Perhaps you don't have many people who are willing to commit to move to a new town or state to start something new. There are still choices that you can make that will help foster the growth of healthy families and communities. The following is a large excerpt from a pattern language from pattern 75, the family. Assume now that you have decided to build a house for yourself. If you place it properly, this house can help to form a cluster or a row of houses or a hill of houses. Or it can help, footnote, these are all references to other patterns in the book, house clusters, row houses, and housing hill. Or it can help to keep a working community alive. This next pattern now gives you some vital information about the social character of the household itself. Dog, stop. If you succeed in following this pattern, it will help repair the life cycle and household mix in your community. The nuclear family is not by itself a viable social form. Until a few years ago, human society was based on the extended family, a family of at least 3 generations, with parents, children, grandparents, aunts, uncles, and cousins, all living together in a single or loosely knit multiple household. But today, people move hundreds of miles to marry, to find education, and to work. Under these circumstances, the only family units which are left are those units called nuclear families, father, mother, and children. And many of these are broken down even farther by divorce and separation. Unfortunately, it seems very likely that the nuclear family is not a viable social form. It is too small. Each person in a nuclear family is too tightly linked to other members of the family. Any one relationship with which goes sour, even for a few hours, becomes critical. People cannot simply turn away towards uncles, aunts, grandchildren, cousins, brothers. Instead, each difficulty twists the family unit into ever tighter spirals of discomfort. The children become prey to all kinds of dependencies and Oedipal neuroses. The parents are so dependent on each other that they are finally forced to separate. Philip Slater describes this situation for American families and finds in the adults of the family, especially the women, a terrible, brooding sense of deprivation. There are simply not enough people around, not enough communal action to give the ordinary experience around the home any depth or richness. It seems essential that the people in a household have at least a dozen people around them so that they can find the comfort and relationships they need to sustain them during their ups and downs. Since the old extended family, based on blood ties, seems to be gone, at least for the moment, This can only happen if small families, couples, and single people join together in voluntary families of 10 or so. Physically, the setting for a large voluntary family must provide for a balance of privacy and communality. Each small family, each person, each couple needs a private realm, almost a private household of their own, according to their territorial need. In the movement to build communes, it is our experience that groups have not taken this need for privacy seriously enough. It has been shrugged off as something to overcome, but it is a deep and basic need, and if the setting does not let each person and each small household regulate itself on this dimension, it is sure to cause trouble. We propose, therefore, that individuals, couples, people, young and old, each subgroup, have its own legally independent household. In some cases, physically separate households and cottages, at least separate rooms, suites, and floors. The private realms are then set off against the common space and the common functions. The most vital commons are the kitchen, the place to sit down and eat, and a garden. Common meals, at least several nights a week, seem to play the biggest role in binding the group. The meals and taking time at the cooking provide the kind of casual meeting time when everything else can be comfortably discussed, the child care arrangements, maintenance projects. Okay. This would suggest then a large family room, farmhouse kitchen right at the heart of the site, at the main crossroads where everyone would tend to meet toward the end of the day. Again, according to the style of the family, this might be a separate building with workshop and gardens, or one wing of a house, or the entire first floor of a 2 or 3 story building. Okay. That's the end of the quote from the book there. In between the two sections quoted above was another section, an excerpt from the book Island by Aldous Huxley, which Alexander, or perhaps one of his co-authors, describes as a lovely vision of such development. Quote, "How many homes does a Palanese child have? About 20 on average. 20? My God! We all belong," Susilla explained, "to a MAC, a mutual adoption club." Apparently the dog hit the keyboard at some point there. Every MAC consists of anything from 15 to 25 assorted couples, elected brides and bridegrooms, old-timers with growing children, grandparents and great-grandparents. Everybody in the club adopts everyone else. Besides our own blood relations, we all have our quota of deputy mothers, deputy fathers, deputy aunts and uncles, deputy brothers and sisters, deputy babies and toddlers, and teenagers. Will shook his head. Making 20 families grow where only one grew before. But what grew before was your kind of family. As though reading instructions from a cookery book. Take one sexually inept wage slave, she went on, one dissatisfied female, 2, or if preferred, 3 small television addicts, marinate in a mixture of Freudism and dilute Christianity, then bottle up tightly in a 4-room flat and stew for 15 years in their own juice. Our recipe is rather different. Take 20 sexually satisfied couples and their offspring, add science, intuition, and humor in equal quantities, steep in tantric Buddhism, and simmer indefinitely in an open pan in the open air oven, over a brisk flame of affection. And what comes out of your pan, he asked, an entirely different kind of family, not exclusive like your families, and not predestined, nor not compulsory, an inclusive, unpredestined, and voluntary family. 20 pairs of fathers and mothers, 8 or 9 ex-fathers and ex-mothers, and 40 or 50 assorted children of all ages. From Aldous Huxley, The Island. Since 1962, when that book was written, there has been 60 plus years of evidence that a value hierarchy composed of sexual satisfaction, science, intuition, humor, and tantric Buddhism will not lead to such a lovely vision. And perhaps due to the communal form in which these experiments have occurred, We have also abandoned the consideration of how the physical space we inhabit can provide the balance of privacy and communality that can produce the inclusive, voluntary family most of us desire to find. The suggestion that everyone dabble in free sex has benefited a few wolves greatly and harmed everyone else deeply. With the decline of natural marriages and families, the whole interconnected fabric of society has become almost irreparably frayed. Despite the bad guys' defeat in the Second World War, we discovered that there was still a need for fig leaf aprons and garments of skin. There were no more serpents telling us to eat forbidden fruit, but Timothy Leary did a fine imitation. Dilute Christianity was a bad replacement for the real thing, and it created an uphill battle for those who still want to use the brand name. Society overcompensated by protecting our thin skins with suits of armor and castle walls. The problem of too little privacy has been replaced by its opposite. What steps can an individual or family take to help foster this kind of environment? One important and counterintuitive step might be to reach out to others from your own position of loneliness. Local churches can be wonderful places to meet people, but like most modern Americans, they are struggling with too much privacy and not enough communality. Perhaps a good starting place would be to organize some volunteers to study the concepts described in a pattern language and look for opportunities to experiment on the homes of others within your community. How can you make their house more amenable to hosting meals, guests, or becoming a place to meet? If not in the homes, then perhaps churches would be a good place to start. Many churches already have plans they would like to develop, but lack the time, resources, and manpower. Creating community spaces to host groups and meetings, or even projects that make it easier for people to sit and get to know one another, could have an exponential effect. It increases the chances of the right people meeting, whether to pursue marriages and families or new business opportunities aligned with the values we want to promote in the places we live. It could be as simple as putting a table and chairs in your front yard and sitting outside to read a book. Gotta go grab the baby. I'll put the robot hosts on again.
So what if I told you that the invisible forces shaping what you want, who you admire, and even how you think are all part of an ancient religious system that's just hiding in plain sight? In this explainer, we're diving into a section from Michael Sartori's Tenets Before Temples, a book that honestly decodes the hidden economics of our modern culture. And it argues that to really understand our world, we first have to understand our desires.
I mean, just think about it for a second. We scroll through feeds like they're sacred texts. We follow these personalities. We give offerings, likes, shares, our money. Our phones have literally become these portals to a new kind of worship. But the real question is, what or who are we actually worshiping?
Well, here's the book's central idea, and it is a wild one. Our modern culture, with its whole universe of influencers, looks almost exactly like the mythology of ancient Greece. The goddess of desire, Aphrodite.
So, what do you think? Did Aldous Huxley have the plan with the mutually adopted community or whatever it was?
I think, obviously, we don't need to experiment anymore, and we don't need to invent new schemes. By now, we know exactly what works and what doesn't work. I gave one example of my neighborhood, example that works. It is dependent on culture. Different cultures will tweak it differently. The size of the family, whether it's nuclear or extended, greatly depends on culture. But in any case, we know what works. There's not too many words to speak about it.
It's funny. It's like, so my brother-in-law, he started a commune. He bought a big farm and had like 4 or 5 kind of apartment units in there, and then he learned how rough it was and all that and stuff, and thought, yeah, maybe you should. Dog, Ben, come here. Maybe it's like, before you decide to like move into a commune or start one, like practice with inviting some people over for dinner. See how that goes. But that's the next step, I guess. So, and just little stuff like that. People do little things like that, and then it means maybe you got to get a new table or something. But buy a new table, you invite some people over for dinner, and then they'll tell you about all the horrible things that are going on in their life, and you can help them out or whatever. So, yeah. You could carry in your hands, but what about a bag? And instead of a bag, put it on skis and put wheels on those skis and put an engine between the wheels and then put wings on it.
Don't put wings. Don't put wings on it. I don't. You've gone too far. Baby steps.
Man. No. Nobody wants to hear you barking.
Yeah, this is important. What do you do in a community with your neighbor's barking dog? There's always going to be your neighbor's annoying barking dog.
Yeah.
And what do you do with your neighbor's screaming children? If all the children are playing around in the communal area outside your window, what happens when you want to sleep in the middle of the day? Living together with people, it's never easy. There's always friction.
So the community needs to buy a separate apartment in the city for daytime naps. Or other things.
When you put people together, there will be friction. If you try to separate yourself with people, it just gets worse. That's the nature of life, but you have to walk the narrow path between the community and the family. But that's how everybody will always playing it.
Yep.
I traveled to Romania this year, in places where a German population settled. And the Germans formed their own villages in Romania with their own distinct culture. And within the German village, it was divided into streets or blocks. And the houses in a block would be responsible for their section of the street, and they would have an election for the governor or the father of the block every year, and he will be assigning people jobs. You should mend the pavement, you should clean the rubbish, and sometimes people will do what they're told, and sometimes they won't. And every year there will be an accounting day. Everybody will visit the previous father of the block, and he would open a book about things that they should have done and they haven't done, or perhaps things that they've done over their duty. And there will be money compensation. So if somebody was lazy, will have to pay for the work of others. So you started the new year with a blank with a clean sheet, and you elected a new father of the block. Same principle, always works.
Hmm.
Individual families, private houses, gathered in a community, but it has to be people with the same basic values, the basic same ideas, or roughly the same church.
Hmm.
That's important.
Yeah. Well, let's see. I guess I could read some more. I don't think I could finish a whole nother chapter, but chapter.
If you do not finish the chapters, who will?
Well, I will eventually. I just might not do it right now. Are you gonna start saying stuff? No. Well, I guess I'll bring things to a close then. All right. It was good talking with you. Enjoy
Yeah,
your.
it was it getting to be my bedtime.
Okay. Yeah, I forget.
Good luck
'Cause
with
what do
the
you
rest
guys?
of the chapters.
Yeah. All right. See you later. Ending stream.